Welcome, everybody. I'm incredibly excited to have Emily Penton as the guest on my Metabolic Life podcast today. Emily and I have gotten to know each other over the last few weeks, and I understand her story. I think you're going to find it incredibly powerful. There are two major things, major health conditions she's been able to overcome. And so I'm going to just kind of Emily, I'm going to turn over to you. I'm not going to even ask a leading question other than you've had a hell of a journey and you're now helping people with their journeys as well. And that's an extension of your old job. I'll let you tell your story. You go do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Brett. And thank you for, oh my gosh, just what you're building with mymetaboliclife.com. I need that so much because I have so many people that come to me with all these questions and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So the fact that I can just go see Brett is priceless to me. So thank you for what you're doing. I definitely want to contribute, help how I can. So anybody who's listening to my story for the first time, I welcome you to bring your skepticism, because if I hadn't had this happen to me, I probably wouldn't believe it. It's too crazy. It's just too bizarre. You're not supposed to get over bipolar disorder, and you're not supposed to get over multiple sclerosis. I suffered with mental illness. I can track back pretty much all my life. Always felt a little bit off, a little bit different. I remember being in friend groups and I would say what I was thinking, and everyone would just be silent and be like, what? And I'm like, so I learned at an early age to just keep everything close to my chest and just don't tell people what I'm thinking. Don't tell adults what I'm thinking. And that was okay. I was able to navigate through it until I couldn't, until I hit a toxic load of inflammation in my body and in my brain. And unfortunately, in the fall of 2018, my bipolar disorder went into rapid cycling. Bipolar disorder goes into cycles where you have mania and then you have depression. And sometimes you get cycles that are like a year or 2 years, a month, 2 months. Mine went into every single day. I didn't know who I was going to be. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And there were times that I would start my first, 4 appointments that day. And by 11 o'clock, I would have to reschedule the whole afternoon because I'd have to go be in bed. And my career was a therapist. So it worked well whenever I could function about 3 to 4 days a week because I was a really good therapist. And I really connected with my clients because I understood what they were suffering from. I came from the trenches. I didn't have to say, so how does that make you feel? I knew how it made them feel because I was experiencing and it sucked.
Yeah.
But I had those days that I could function and I was on and I was able to provide excellent service until it became unethical, and I had to quit at the age of 40. And I had to move in with my mom. And to have your master's degree in clinical counseling and to have had a career and then have to move in with your mom is like being at the bottom of the pit and then like digging a hole. It's like just everything was closing in on me. And what happened was my brother, who's kind of a prickly pear, like he's not usually a nice guy. He did something nice and he reached out to me and he told me about Amber O'Hearn. And her story started 10 years prior to 2018 or 2019 was when he sent this. And she had resolved bipolar disorder. And I was like, resolved? What? That doesn't even happen. And the way she did it was eating fatty animal meat. And so all I heard was, "You're telling me there's a chance." And I jumped in. And thankfully, bipolar disorder was a gift at that moment because we are impulsive, we have risky behavior, and we jump right in. And so I jumped in the deep end. And on February 24th of 2019, I stopped eating sugar, cakes, uh, sugary coffees, ramen noodles, entire pizzas by myself, ice cream right out of the carton, you name it. I mean, fried foods, all the things. Boxed wine, like there was nothing I wouldn't consume. Cookie dough, um, and I started eating fatty animal meat, chicken with the skin on, ribs, ribeyes, burgers, fatty pork butt, breakfast sausage, bacon, eggs. But no, I didn't include eggs until way later. Just all the things, animal meat and animal fat. And then this was the craziest part. Like, I didn't expect this to happen at all. 3 weeks in, I was hospitalized. So a logical person would go, I started this all meat diet and now I'm hospitalized. Maybe I did something wrong. But I was hospitalized with acute dysphagia where my throat would not swallow. They did some kind of a barium swallow test and found out it was not mechanical, it was neurological. And they did an MRI and they found lesions on my brain, and they did a lumbar puncture and they diagnosed me with multiple sclerosis. By the time I left the hospital, I couldn't walk without an assistive device. I had delayed and slurred speech, and I had more significant brain fog than I ever did with bipolar disorder. So, not only did I have mental illness still, I had multiple sclerosis. And the reason I call my business Inner Clarity System was because in that moment, I had this undeniable inner clarity. I don't know where it came from. I mean, I do, it's from God, but this inner knowing that I had to just keep eating this fatty animal meat, and that was what I needed to do to reduce the inflammation in my brain and my body. And so I gambled, to be totally honest with you. I went against the doctor's advice. And I did stay on my psych meds. I didn't go against that, but I didn't take the MS injections that they wanted me to take. I told the neurologist, I said, it's your job to monitor my MS. It's my job to treat my MS. And he did not like that. But I just kept on. And that's one good thing about being bipolar is you don't care what other people think. So I just kept going. And by the end of the 4th week of eating this way, I had a glimpse of hope. And it was so tiny. It was just this tiny little 10-minute moment. But I experienced joy. And it was such a foreign emotion to me that I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is what other people feel. This is what they experience. Like, screw you guys. You're sitting here judging me, feeling great. Like, I had no idea that that's how everybody felt. Was not everybody, but like neurotypical people felt joy. And that was their overriding emotion.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I felt it for 15 minutes. And then the next day, 20. And it just kept growing until now I can't even have a bad day. I'm just in joy. And so I made a choice at that moment of mind over body. And I said, I don't care if I can't walk. I don't care if nothing gets better with my physical body, I'm going to choose my mind, because it's been torture my whole first 40 years not having control of my emotions and my mind. At least I can control my mind. But my gamble paid off, and my last MS symptom was May 9th of 2019. So February 24th, I started. March 12th, I'm hospitalized. April was my last bipolar episode. May 9th was my last MS episode, or my last MS symptom.
So like 5 months?
Yeah. And then I went back to work full time as a therapist in June of 2019. My psychiatrist started tapering me off of all of my meds. And that was scary for me, because I was like, we're functioning. We haven't functioned in 8 years. Like, can we just enjoy this for a minute? And he was like, but Emily, there's light in your eyes, and you're speaking about the future, and you're planning. Like, let's just taper just a little bit. And so we tapered down, and my last psych med was September of 2019. And it has just been better ever since. Like, I'm literally not the person I was last year. I'm not the person I was 6 months ago. Like, it just keeps getting better as I eat fatty animal meat. Oh, and I lost 120 pounds. That's my story.
How did you even notice it's such a trivial little amount?
It was crazy. I lost like a pound a day. It was stupid. It was crazy.
Did everybody think you had cancer?
No, nobody said that until I got around, I think it was like 135. My dad he wasn't used to seeing me that skinny. And I went and I got pictures of me in high school. I go, Dad, look. I said, my knees are the biggest part of my leg. And he goes, oh, that's right. You were a skinny kid. Like, he just forgot, because I was 40 years old. And I was like, I'm not a big girl. And he was like, you're right, I forgot. And then I showed him the BMI chart, and I'm like, I can get down to 125 and I'm still in range. He was, just being a dad, just concerned.
Oh, everybody always, absolutely. I had the same thing, as you're aware, 115 pounds in 9 months, and everybody thought I was dying, because that's the only time you see somebody make that fast, half a pound to a pound a day, kind of a scenario out there. I can't tell you how much my heart just, my mother was bipolar from when she got pregnant with my older brother. So he's 8 years older than me, and 7, 8 years. And so around 21, 22, she had been bipolar till the day she died, and in and out of psych hospitals my whole life. And, me and my family were like, God, this, we didn't talk a lot about it, but we could just see the toll on Dad trying to be the single parent, because she'd be gone for a month or 2 or 3 at a time. When I was 4, she's gone for a year and a half. And I'm like, what if we could have done something? Had we known? Her whole life could have been a life instead of how trapped. But then I think about how hard it had to be for her and you, because we're just dealing with it from the outside on how it impacts us. And it impacted us. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But just understanding, she lost control. She couldn't control her life.
No, not at all. And it's heartbreaking every time someone comes to me, because we know the shift before everyone else does. And so we know, whoa, there's something different, and we're thinking different. but there is a tornado path behind us that we did. And we have created PTSD for all of our family members, all of our friends. Our friends can't even believe us. Nobody can believe us. We didn't even believe ourselves. So that is a lot of the inner torture is for the patient, but it's for the family too. I mean, they need to be heard as well, especially to not be able to trust your mom. I mean, I'm not going to go into too much with my son, but there were many conversations where he would come to me afterwards and he'd be like, I got to tell you something. And I'm like, okay, all right, what's up? And he's like, I forgot to do my homework yesterday. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what chapter is it? Maybe we can look at it now. And he's like, you're not going to yell at me? Like, you're not mad?
He didn't know which mom you were going to be.
Exactly. And I'm like, no, baby, I don't yell anymore. I don't talk to you like that. And he goes, oh, I forgot. Okay, cool. Yeah, I really need help with chapter 11. And I'm like, oh, poor baby. Like, it just broke my heart because he's like literally like this, like battered, animal or something, like ready to protect himself from his mother because I was so angry and volatile and unpredictable. Or I was like, let's go get ice cream.
What in your story when you talked about that it would you could change from day to day or maybe even inside of the day, is that what you were even saying too
Oh
during
yeah.
the day? What I remembered is, totally we would see the cycle, the whole thing, but it was never usually, it could turn on a dime, but mom would go from just kind of, she'd be what you would just kind of call normal mom for months or a year. And then suddenly you could see the manic coming on because now she had lists and everybody had chores to do because she was on a mission for something. And we're going to paint the house, we're going to paint these bedrooms, we're going to change the drapes, and just all of the different things that are going to happen. And everything would get done in 2-3 weeks. It's just like, but then you knew once manic doesn't last, at least with my mom, didn't last super long. And then she couldn't get out of the bed for 3, 4, 5 weeks and couldn't eat. And when she did, it was just anyhow. So I remember seeing both sides of it. It just never was like a day to day, but you could just kind of sometimes if you caught right when things were about to happen, she would just get this little look in her eye. And my siblings and all, we all know exactly what it means. And it means mom can't be allowed to drive anymore. So, wow, I can't, and then so you were diagnosed with the MS, and then how long was it that well, can you just expand a little bit about what it kind of did from a mobility and the other kind of MS things? Because it sounds like because of the timing of finding this way of eating that, and you were doing it because you had already had the first thing, the bipolar, that you were able to nip the MS kind of quick. Is what I'm hearing. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, super quick. And it's so bizarre because once I heard the word MS from the doctor, I went into research mode and I looked at all of the symptoms and everything. And I was like, I've had that for 10 years. I've had that for 5 years. I've had that for 2 years. So I have had the symptoms of MS and had no idea what it
So
was.
you were just undiagnosed for so long. It wasn't until the throat thing triggered actually looking into something.
And to be totally honest with you, it wasn't that carnivore obviously caused the MS, but carnivore pulled back the curtain and revealed the MS.
Right.
And
Oh,
and so I'm grateful for carnivore. Other people are like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to." But what do you mean you don't? I want to know what's under there. Like I want to know what I'm fighting here. I want to know what this dragon's name is so I can cut its head off. And And so I'm really, really grateful for that. But man, for the past 10 years, I was going to the doctor going, everyone else in the office will be in a meeting and everyone else is fine. And I'm like sitting here like with a fan in my face, like I am dying. And I was 36, when that happened. And they're like, oh, well, you're just getting old. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm 36. Like, I'm not getting old. I shouldn't be hotter than every other person in my office. And I was had a joint pain, and I was popping 600 to 800 milligrams of ibuprofen a day, or even at a time. Yeah, just to be able to get up out of my work chair, get up out of my bed. What else? I had a severe obstructive sleep apnea. I had a CPAP. And then thankfully, when I lost the weight, I stopped having sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big blessing. But yeah, so I had already had the MS, and then it didn't get the typical symptoms of the dysphagia, and then the inability. I couldn't stand up. If I didn't have a walker, I would fall over. Like I couldn't stand on my own.
So once it was diagnosed, it was starting to rage then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's really weird is that bipolar disorder, I felt really equipped to deal with MS, because bipolar disorder was so inconsistent. You never knew what was going to happen, when the other shoe was going to drop. MS was the same way. I would have a really bad day and I couldn't walk. And then I would have another day and I could walk faster with my walker. And then I would have a third day and I didn't need my walker. And so it was just like I was being gaslit, just like MS, or just like bipolar. And I was just like, I'm better, I'm not better. I'm better, I'm not better. So I was like, screw you, I'm documenting all of this. So I had a little chart and I documented symptoms for the whole time from March 12th through May 9th. And then on May 9th, that was the last day that I experienced any MS symptoms. And now, like, I can do CrossFit, and I can run downstairs, I can run upstairs, like crazy. And I remember the most bizarre thing was I kept dropping everything. And I at first you just think, oh, I'm rushing too much, so silly. And then I realized my hands are not gripping. Like I literally could not hold on to a plate. And I had to start getting like adapters, like for my pen. I don't have one here, but like an adapter for my pen, because I couldn't even hold a pen to write. I couldn't even write letters. I could barely like write my name. Thankfully or not thankfully, I don't have any video footage of that time. Nobody was around to videotape me, and I thought my life was over, so I didn't even think to videotape it. At that point, I was choosing mind over body, and I didn't care that my body was, I cared, but I was so grateful that my mind was there. And then it was a pleasant surprise on May 10th and on that my symptoms never came back. And then my MRIs kept showing, like my last MRI showed no, and it says in the text, in the description, it says no new MS activity. And I got that in like 2021, 2022. And I was with my dad, and I was like, Dad, look. And he was like, and he high-fived me. He's like, Emily, you did it. Like, you did it. It's over.
And that's 2 years ago now, and you're still just even better and better, correct?
Oh yeah. Like I've had no
You're doing CrossFit.
yeah. I've had no regression at all. of the MS. And, you know, I'm up for whatever. I mean, I recognize that there are symptoms that do come back, but my story is it's over. And that's the way I'm going to keep living until it's not.
Well, let me ask you a question on something you said, which is going to take us into what I want to touch on before we get off is your practice and what you do and how you do this with people. Because what you said that so many things you said, I either recognized in my mother from when she was suffering with it, but then in my own healing, understanding that this nutritional ketosis, metabolic therapy, and there's a spectrum of it. You got to find what works for the person, but I'm all for go all the way to the extreme if you can handle it right away. Go zero carb, do the carnivore. I am now a month into just purely that myself, and I've had 3 things that have changed for me in the last month just from that. But the thing that you said that triggered my mind was, oh, that's what happens when you get older. And I got to imagine you've worked with quite a few people my age or older, because I'm 20 years older or 15, 18 years older than you, whatever it is. And I'm sure you've worked with people in their late 60s and 70s. And one of the things that jumped out at me first, and what everybody always told me was, oh, Brett, you must feel so much better after losing all that weight. And I go, well, the funny thing is it was when I became fat adapted and I entered and started living in this new metabolic state, or the state we were all born in, I was back in it again, that all of my pain disappeared. And even though I still had 95 more pounds on me to go, I was moving on the court. People are looking at me. The guys who played with me all the time are seeing me do things they hadn't seen me do in the history of 12 previous 15 years of playing that sport with them. And so can you expand upon that we're not supposed to get crippled. We're not supposed to have aches and pains and find it hard to get out of bed when we age. If we take care of ourselves, go with where I'm going there. If you agree with this.
100%, 100%. Yeah. And it was so funny because, you know, I mean, I was 28 when I had my son, and you know, you do that mom grunt, you know, when you get up off the floor and everything, and or whenever you're with other moms, you hear them like, you know, like everyone. I mean, so I just thought everybody was the same. And in Southeast Missouri, I didn't think there was anything wrong with me because that's what everyone looked like a little bowling ball. Like that's just what we look like.
Now,
And I'm I'm not, you know, stereotyping or judging. Like I'm just telling you, come to Walmart in Southeast Missouri and we're here. We're bowling balls. That's what we look like.
everywhere. It's everywhere.
It is, but that was just my little snow globe. And so I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I was just like everybody else. Until now, whenever people like I'll just be, I don't know, at the grocery store and I'll like pop down on the floor, like squat down and look at the spices on the bottom shelf, and I'll read a spice and then I'll put it down and I'm like, no, that's not the one I want. I'll read another one, not the one I want, and I'll read a third one and I'm like, oh, that's the one I want. And then I pop back up. And like people are like, did that hurt? You know, like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Like my joints work, like everything's fine. And then when I'm around friends and stuff, like not friends, but like new people, and somebody will say something and they're like, well, how old are you? And I'm like, 45. And they're like, what? What? You're 45? What year were you born? Like 1979. They're like, okay, how are you 45? And I'm just like, well, it's a long story. But when I was 40, I was 40. Like it was obvious that I was 40. I probably walked around like I was 50. And when at 45, it literally shaved like 15 years off of my life. And especially with my mental clarity. That's what baffled me, because I have a video on my Instagram that if you click on it, I don't even make sense. Like I'm delirious. Like I can't even put like sentences together. And I remember back in the day, like I couldn't have like vocab recall. But now it's just, it comes to me because my brain's just not chock full of inflammation. Who knew it was Doritos and Oreos?
That was one of the things when I got exposed to this, not through Jordan Peterson, but I saw my brother and, lose a great deal of weight in the 4 months I hadn't seen him. I'm like, what happened to you? And when I started probing and trying to figure this out, and he's just like, I can tell once I hit ketosis because my brain's on fire. I'm able to work like a madman. I can focus. I've got concentration, and everything just becomes easy. And I'm like, oh, that sure sounds kind of cool. And it wasn't until like 3 weeks later that hit for me, and I'm like, oh my God. So do you work with a kind of a special patient base, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. There's many carnivore coaches, keto coaches out there, and I think they're incredible. Like I am not knocking them at all, but because of how deep in the trenches I went with my craziness, like the psych ward, like suicidal ideation, like drug use, like alcohol use. I have a different skill set where I'm able to go to some really dark places with people that, Susie Q carnivore coach would be like, okay, like, so let's talk about your macros, like they would be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm able to like pull up my sleeves and be like, all right, sister, give me your worst. I can take it. And so I really help people who come from some really dark stuff, some eating disorders, alcoholism, drug addiction, prison, psych wards, borderline personality disorder. When I was a therapist, it is just known with all of the therapists that our clients with borderline personality disorder are never going to get better. They just aren't. There's no medication, there's no talk therapy, there's no nothing. We love them, we support them, we're there for them, but they ain't getting better. I have watched multiple clients with borderline personality disorder completely transform. And it's just so amazing. It's so fun because I felt like when I was a therapist in the regular mental health field, I was like Groundhog Day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're having the same conversation and people are not getting better. But now, because I'm able to reduce and eliminate the inflammation in their brain and in their body, they're getting better. Bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, like, oh my gosh, like I just want to go mine through all of the psych wards, all of the homeless shelters, and just feed everybody steak, and just watch the whole world come to life.
Absolutely. Well, and so you have a real, because you could diagnose people with all of these different things because of your training and your degree and everything like that. And I see it as so much parallel from, we'll call it the mental health side, where you're in the DSM book, that, the diagnosis book and everything. And then you flip over to more the health side, the diabetes, heart, and hypertension side of everything. And I think all of the guidelines are fundamentally broken from the following standpoint. I'm curious what you think about this. I think because nobody acknowledges, even though this is all over in the medical literature, I know you're aware of this. I'm throwing you a softball because I know you know the answer. And I know we already agree on this, but to have it said on air. The very first if there's a 15-point treatment plan or things to go through with people, what to talk with them on part of a treatment course, to me, the reason why both sides of the world, the mental health and the physical health, are completely broken guideline wise is it doesn't say to the doctor or the therapist or the counselor, whoever's providing information, this, you have the ability has the innate ability, excuse me, the body has the innate ability to heal. If we put the right things in it, are you just willing to give up the things that are damaging you? Because if you need those things and you're not willing to give up, it's just like an alcoholic. Are you willing to stop the alcohol? Because the healing and the recovery can't come as long as the alcohol's still there. But so many of these things, as you just mentioned, schizophrenia, we now know, reversible. Bipolar, you're a witness, but we both know, very. And anybody looking into mental health things, go to metabolicmind.org. Call Emily also. She's going to be your rock star and get you through all of this. But we know Chris Palmer, Georgia Eady, Harvard psychiatrists that are doing this with people, and it's growing around the world, but it's still the best kept secret. Just as if you got diabetes type 2 and you're not being told that healing is an option, and that all the guidelines are written under the assumption there is no such thing as healing. These are chronic progressive things. These are lifelong things. These are deficiencies in you. When I realized that, I think everything, when you trace back and you really look at medical history, it's all, we've had malnutrition situations are the only big problems we have. And most of the things that we've created for what we would call pandemic type stuff is really, once you bring the health of the people and the nutrition up, let the body work with what it's supposed to have, it works. So should that be the number one thing on both sides of the house for
Yeah.
guidelines?
Well, all I can speak on is my field with therapy. And I, could be in my office talking to someone and, they're wanting to go into, childhood trauma situation or relational trauma or self-sabotage. We could literally talk therapy till we are blue in the face. But whenever I'm talking to them and they are elbow deep in a bag of Doritos, sipping on a big gulp, I'm talking and their eyes are glassing over. They can't hear me. And so for me to be like, okay, for next week, I'm going to have you do this exercise. And I want you to start journaling. And I really need you to take like about 5 minutes to breathe every day. And they can't even like function. They can't even survive. Like, no, we got to stop the bleeding first. And so that's why I left the private practice, because licensing board and insurance panels did not want me talking about food. And I was just like, all right, take the letters from behind my name, call me a coach. Like, I don't care. And anyway, the license limited me to Missouri anyway. Now I can help people all over the world. I have clients in the Netherlands and New Zealand and India. Like, I have clients all over the world. And I start with their food. And we remove the inflammation in their brain. And then their brain starts to come online. And then guess what? They start to solve their own problems. Because their brain is not broken. It's functioning, but we just have all this gunk in it. And so we clean out all the gunk and then it just starts working like a well-oiled machine. And then they're like, oh, I think that I should go apply for a job. And I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And they're like, I went and applied for a job and I got it. And I'm like, cool. And they're like, my first day's tomorrow and I'm not nervous about it. And I'm like, great. And like, just these beautiful things happen once we get the gunk out of the way. I could sit there with that same person and be like, okay, let's visualize what it will be like whenever you do get a job and whenever you do function. And they're like, okay, how long do I have to do this? Like it's literally laughable. It's absolutely laughable to not start with animal meat and animal fat.
Just absolutely amazing. I mean, it after we're in this for a number of years, as we both have been now, it just, it's sometimes hard. Well, it's not hard because we stare at it every day, around us, and we see it every time you go in a store and you just walk past somebody's shopping cart. I exactly know who's suffering from what.
And that belly, whenever men have those skinny arms and skinny legs, and then this just pop belly, I'm just like, oh, like, I know that you are addicted to Little Debbie cakes. I know you are. And it just breaks my heart.
Well, and when you said, because both of us having lost about the same amount of weight,
yeah,
it's really darn close. And so I don't think there's a fat shaming bone inside of either one of us, because I lived way overweight for 15 to 20 plus years. And but I just wrote one of the newer blogs on my site, is talking about, here's a path, but I draw an analogy from in the 1800s. If you went to the circus or some kind of a carnival and there's the sideshow, like the freaks of nature, and you would have to pay to go in the tent and just see the world's fattest man. And you go look up pictures and go to Guinness World Book of Records and all these things for what it was then. And you have that person go walk through Walmart or just around town, they're going to look like they're not even one of the heavier people in town anymore. But it was so abnormal to be 60, 80, 100 pounds, 150 pounds overweight. But we have 200-300 pounder, we have people can't leave their house. They're so big. We have shows on TV about all of this. And it's just like, oh my God, how can we, and that's why you and I both do this and why we're recording right now, because there's opportunities to help people, aren't there?
Absolutely. And I'm going to be, well, my secret. My plan is to live till 123, but I'm going to be in my 80s, 90s. I'm going to still be talking about this because it just never gets old. And I could never exhaust all of the people. I wish I would have counted. But over 5 years, I mean, thousands, maybe 1 million people that one little girl from Southeast Missouri who eats steaks has changed their entire life. I get emails on at least monthly basis. Thank you. I watched your video. I did what you said, and I have a completely different life now. And I'm just like, okay, I'm never going to shut up ever. I'm never. And if you don't want to hear this, just hit next.
Let it go. Move on. This
You're
isn't
not
for
my
you.
audience. You're not my audience. Go enjoy your cinnamon rolls and your biscuits and gravy. It's okay.
Well, I remember our conversation where you referenced what you wanted to be doing when you're 123. And I go, well, that means I have to make it 135 so I can witness it and watch it. So, but that might be a great place to kind of start to come in for a landing. Are there any other thoughts that you think you really want to drive home with? Because it's an incredible story. And we had the bipolar, we had the MS. There was a third thing that you mentioned that I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head.
Weight loss?
Well, the weight loss too, but there was even a third condition. I'll find it in the video. But is there anything else that you would like to just kind of throw in here, or parting comments? And then we're going to have people find out where they can find you, and not beyond what you say. It's going to be in all the show notes, all the different ways to reach and talk to Emily, because people need to reach and talk to Emily. Emily's got an incredible skill set, and what she does is amazing. Now, whatever you'd like to throw on top of that.
Yeah. I have a lot of family members of severely mentally ill people that find my videos. And I want to talk to you and let you know just what it's like to work with me. Because, the typical carnivore coaches, they charge a lot less. Um, but what I do is very intensive. The work that I do, I literally have clients cuss me out and hang up on me, and it's pretty intense. But I get through their walls, and even sometimes a psychiatrist couldn't get through their walls, because the psychiatrist doesn't have that experience in the trenches to be able to speak their language. So,
The empathy of having lived it.
yeah. So I will encourage you also that to talk with me, it's $111. But you know what? I have a special going till the end of September for back to school. But if you're watching this video and you reach out to me and you say, I found you through Brett, I will honor that same price. It's usually $111 to talk to me, but if you tell me you came through Brett, I'll do the initial call for $55. And I have had a lot of people have one phone call with me, and that's all that they needed. Some of the really intense cases, they need that really day-to-day connection.
Hand
And
holding.
that's $6,500 to work with me for 2 months. But I get results and I over deliver and I don't let go. And once this mama's heart is in, I don't get out. Like, I'm there. I want to see this to the end.
Well, and
And
you've got like an all like a 24/7 type of access, so that it's not just 2 hours a week. Or I mean, this is you're immersed in this person's life.
no, because when somebody's mentally ill, you can't have office hours. They need to be able to reach out and send you a message at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to read that message at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they put a pin in it and they know that Miss Emily heard my message and she's going to respond to me in the morning. And they know they're not alone at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so yeah, I use a video messaging app called Marco Polo, and they literally, it's like having a therapist in your pocket, and you literally have access to me 24/7 for that 2 months. If you're in a financial situation, let me know. I have been known to work with people when I can. So I don't want that to intimidate you, but I want you to know that there's help out there, because every family that's come to me has said, I've taken my child or my brother or my mom to every psychiatrist and therapist and nothing is working. And then I have been able to, because I'm able to speak their language. And there's a totally different experience whenever we make it fun. And I know this sounds bizarre, but I make it so fun whenever we pick out our food list and whenever they get to send me a message and they get to tell me how they're doing. We just really have a good time, and it's not torture for them. So reach out to me if you want help with your family member.
I can't, and I don't want to get emotional again, but for the family members that are all out there, if we would have had somebody that we could, yeah, we would have paid you $1 million, Emily, to do what you do, because it would have been worth every dollar. And I just think of the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars for all of these months and years that my mom spent inpatient, and this 12 drugs that she was on that we believe was partially responsible for the Parkinson's that she suffered with her last 6 years. I oh my God, I hope one person finds this and I hope a lot of people find this, but if one person can find this and find you, oh my God. So Emily, I see you're Emily Penton, and you're at Inner Clarity Systems. And what's your web address?
EmilyPenton.com.
Emily Penton. And so you're Emily at emilypenton.com for email too. Is that how that works? Or
Oh, I'm sorry. My website is emilypenton.com. My email is emily at innerclaritysystem.com.
excellent. Well, I'm going to have links for all of that in the show notes. So anybody that wants, just go down below here. And by the time you're watching it, it will be in there before all of this launches. I can't thank you enough for coming on, Emily.
You got it. We're going to change the world. I'm so thankful for you, Brett. You're breaking my heart. You're going to make me cry. You're going to make me cry. Stop.
All right, we're done. And I'm sorry, everybody, you had to see that happen again. Have a great day. Hold still for a sec.
You're so sweet.